It's hard to imagine what it must have felt like, to stand in a sacred grove, the air heavy with smoke and fear, while the blood of a freshly sacrificed animal splattered the altar stones. Thunder cracked across the fjord, and somewhere in the depths of your bones you wondered, was that Thor? Or was it something else, something darker? Let's go back, far back, not just to the Viking age of 800 to 1100 CE, but into the mindset of a people for whom gods weren't characters in bedtime stories. They were participants in life, present, demanding, terrifying, comforting, and very, very real. The Vikings didn't have a word for religion. They didn't need one. Their belief system was the fabric of reality, not something separate from it. It was called Forn Siðr, the old way. Not a formal creed, not a list of commandments chiseled into stone tablets. It was the way your father lived, and his father before him. It was carved into the wood of your longhouse, whispered into the wind off the fjords, and buried with you when you died. There were no holy books, no priests in flowing robes reciting doctrine. But don't mistake that for a lack of sophistication. These people had myths. They had rituals. They had a world view as rich and layered as anything in the classical Mediterranean or the Indian subcontinent. And when Christianity arrived, when this entire belief system was under assault, it didn't go quietly. It went out in fire and blood and silence. When most of us think of Viking gods today, our minds jump to pop culture. Thor, with his hammer and his red cape. Odin, the wise war god with his raven companions. But these images are echoes, flat, sanitized, made-for-TV versions of something much more raw. In the Norse world, gods were not distant creators sitting on thrones of gold. They were actors in the ongoing cosmic drama. Odin wasn't a kindly all-father. He was a terrifying, one-eyed seeker of knowledge, willing to sacrifice himself, hang from the world tree, and pluck out his own eye to gain wisdom. This is not a warm god. This is a god you feared as much as loved. Thor. He wasn't charming, he was violent. A protector, yes, but also a symbol of chaos held barely in check. He slaughtered giants with his hammer Mjolnir, and the world trembled when he moved. Then there's Freya, fertility goddess, lover and warrior, practitioner of Cedar, the strange and powerful magic that blurred the lines between life and death. She cried tears of red gold when she wept. This wasn't a pantheon of tidy archetypes. These were forces, complex, contradictory, human and not human, and behind it all was Ragnarok, the final, apocalyptic battle when the gods themselves would die. The world was fated to end, and even the gods couldn't stop it. What kind of belief system begins with the knowledge that even its own gods are doomed? What kind of people carry that weight and keep going? Let's talk about sacrifice. And no, we're not talking about metaphorical offerings. We're talking blot, real, physical, and often messy. Imagine it, a sacred clearing in the forest, a wooden altar, maybe smeared already with dried blood from previous rituals. The people gather, farmers, warriors, women, children. Maybe it's a drought, maybe it's a plague. Maybe the chieftain wants to guarantee victory in a coming raid. A pig is led forward, or a horse, or sometimes a human being. The knife gleams, the blood flows, the gods are watching. This wasn't cruelty, it was survival, it was communion. The sacrificed animal's blood might be sprinkled on the people, the temple, the statues of the gods. Its meat would be cooked, shared in a great feast. The blot was both worship and politics. It tied communities together. It reinforced the hierarchy. It said, "We are doing our part. Now you, gods, do yours." In Uppsala, in Sweden, there was once a great temple, richly decorated with gold, where sacrifices, some say human, were offered to Odin, Thor, and Freya every 9 years. 99 men, 99 horses hung in the trees of the sacred grove. Can you imagine the smell, the sound, the weight of it? And then there's the magic. Not parlor tricks, not Harry Potter spells. We're talking Cedar, a form of shamanic sorcery that was seen as powerful and dangerous. The practitioners, usually women known as volur, were feared and revered. They were the ones who could see into the future or alter it. They could curse, bless, communicate with spirits, summon the dead. They were also liminal figures, outsiders, mysterious. Think about what that says. A society that depends on women wielding dark magic to interface with fate itself, but also fears what that means. Male practitioners of Cedar were seen as effeminate, deviant. Even Odin, the most powerful of the gods, was mocked for using it. What does that tell us? That power was both sacred and polluting, that to approach the divine was to risk something. Nowhere was the Norse worldview more vivid or more confusing than in their beliefs about death. We've all heard of Valhalla, the great hall of Odin. Warriors who die in battle are carried there by Valkyries to feast and fight until Ragnarok. Sounds great. But not everyone went there. In fact, most didn't. Some ended up in Hell, a shadowy, quiet realm ruled by a death goddess of the same name. Not necessarily a punishment, just the place where the dead go. Others went to fields of bliss. Others might be reborn. Others might linger near their grave mounds, haunting or helping the living. And then there are the Draugr, the undead, corpses that wouldn't stay dead, vengeful, hungry, dangerous. Burials had to be done right to prevent it. Funerals were events. Think of the famous ship burials, great vessels filled with goods, weapons, sometimes even slaves, and set aflame or buried in mounds. These weren't just rituals, they were statements, political declarations, acts of memory. And in the case of legendary figures like the woman buried in the Oseberg ship, accompanied by another woman, sacrificed or not, we're talking epic, symbolic acts. But nothing lasts forever, not even the gods. Starting in the 9th and 10th centuries, Christianity crept in. At first, it was slow. Merchants, missionaries, diplomats, then kings converted, and when they did, they brought the law with them. Blots were outlawed. Eating horse meat associated with pagan feasts was banned. Temples were burned or repurposed. Odin became a devil. Thor became a joke. And the old stories, they were rewritten. Preserved, yes, by Christian scribes, but with a twist. Was Loki always evil? Or did Christian editors warp his role? Was Ragnarok once a noble end or a warning of damnation? We don't know, but we can feel the shift. Like a cultural memory with the edges filed down, some resisted. In Iceland, Christian law was adopted, but pagans were allowed to worship in secret. For a while, but eventually, the old way went quiet. And yet, it didn't die. You can still see it, in the runestones, in the stories, in the revivalist faiths today who call themselves Asatru. In our days of the week, Wednesday, Woden's Day, Thursday, Thor's Day. More importantly, it lingers in how we imagine, in our fascination with doom and fate, with apocalypse and heroism, with gods who are flawed, like us. Maybe that's why these myths endure, because they didn't promise salvation. They promised a fight worth dying for. The Vikings didn't ask, "Will I be saved?" They asked, "Will I be remembered?" And that might be the most human question of all. Thank you for watching. If you haven't done so, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, stay curious.